Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode. I gotta stop saying which episode it is.
Just say another episode.
Another episode. Like, oh
next.
goodness,
Yeah.
another one. This is the real episode 3. Last week I definitely said episode 3, and it was only episode 2, but it was the 3rd episode in some. Anyways, or the numbers were never my strong
What
suit.
happens when you start with 0? Like this is my honestly, dude. Honestly, this is my. Somebody was telling me about the math equivalent to Wordle this past week, and I like that's the least amount of fun I could ever imagine having. Would be like, you mean I daily get to wrestle with a math question?
That's awful.
Nope.
So do you play Wordle every day faithfully?
I don't. No, my wife does. I'll frequently get a text saying, "I did. Come look at this." And,
look at me.
We'll work through it. But
yeah, Connie and I play,
Yeah.
and like we've got this rivalry going with my sister and brother-in-law.
Okay.
And so the 4 of us play
right on.
and send each other our Wordle scores in a group chat.
That's awesome.
And it I didn't know it was a rivalry until
Visits
today.
have been canceled. Gifts have been returned.
I didn't know it was a competition until my sister sent me a text today. So Connie and I got the words in 3 of 6 tries. So you get 6 tries.
Yep.
3 of 6, both of us. It's like that's pretty good. That's not normally the way it goes. It takes a few more, right?
Yeah.
And so my sister sends this text to us. She says to her husband, "You have to get 1 out of 6 or we lose the day." I'm like, I didn't know since when was it a competition? I bet
score
everything. Yeah. Who's counting? I am definitely.
That's awesome. That's right.
Definitely.
So this is just for fun, right? Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's good that you think that because you lose so often. But no, honestly, this is.
Oh, it's fun.
That's awesome.
It's
Siblings
fun.
never change.
No,
There you
it's
go.
great.
That's
It's
awesome.
great. So if you're playing Wordle out there, don't text me the word.
That's right.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Oh man! So we dealt with 2 chapters this Sunday because why not? 4 and 6, and we're gonna jump into it because we both preached.
Yep.
And this will be a fun conversation. But the idea of like external opposition to the build is what's going on. That's kind of So mine is chapter 4 is titled "Opposition to the Build." Yours definitely makes a judgment and says
Nehemiah's enemies opposing the rebuilding. Yeah, no, it's right there.
and so then 6 is further opposition to the build is what I've got, and yours is like more enemies pile
Nehemiah's
on.
enemies continue to oppose the rebuilding. So it's
That's great.
Yeah.
But it's this idea of opposition, and it is a really relevant conversation to where we're at, like culturally, and with the way in which Christians are choosing to interact with the world.
I said that to Family Church on Sunday. I was like, sometimes I just wish there was something going on in the world right now that we could relate to. In terms of what we're talking about. Like if only there was something happening in Canada right now with people in our church that would help us to connect with this idea of opposition to what is going. Anyway.
Yeah. So it's worth saying at the beginning, like this is a really important conversation, and we'll see kind of where where we go. We've got some notes to guide us today. But like it's worth saying that it's a messy situation in the church, and I think like that's what we're feeling as pastors is
absolutely
like it regardless of where you land, it's probably never been more important to talk about how our faith informs all of our decisions. And like I've said for a long time, like if you call yourself a follower of Jesus, you don't get to compartmentalize your faith.
There's no line that you get to where you go, yeah, that's about as far as I'm willing to go for Jesus. And after this, he'll understand as to why I'm bending it and whatever. I mean, you can say that if you want. Right. There's no place in Scripture that says, yeah, no, that's what I expect of you.
Yeah. So I think we probably have lived in a comfortable enough place in our lifetime anyways to say, where it's become very easy to say, this is my life as a Christian.
Yep.
And these are the other areas of my life. And it's not like a malicious thing. It's not like I would like to keep them separate because I like doing these things that I want to do. And, I like also the benefits of being a Christian. Like at worst, that's what it is.
Yes.
But I think it's been comfortable enough that we kind of have lived into this reality where, you worship on Sundays, you do your volunteer stuff with the church, you do your work with the church, all of that good. And then you go away and the rest of your life happens. And, I think that right now it's never been a better time to say, that's maybe where things go sideways.
Right. Yeah.
Is when you try to keep them so separate. And then
eventually they will converge at points.
And you don't know what to do.
And you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think this is one of those passages that, again, I'm just so grateful for this book and the perspective that it gives us in those moments of saying, like, that's all well and good until you hit those moments.
Yeah.
Right? Like the you do you and I'll do me thing is great as a fortune cookie saying. But in real life, our lives hit points where what you're doing and what I'm doing are not going to always jive. And that's unfortunately it's the inevitable conclusion of this path that our world is on, of like, you do you and I'll do me, my freedom, your truth, my truth, is that eventually there are convergent points. And that's where our faith is so very important not to be set aside.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And I think it's worth saying that it's important to remember that for as many differences as there are, like we as Christians have, maybe everybody watching this would call themselves a Christian, maybe not. I hope not. I hope actually not. But we have a choice, at least let's say even you and I, for argument's sake, have a choice in how we have conversations. We can say that our faith gives us this wealth of commonality and common ground to stand on and to say, okay, let's figure out the differences from that place. Or we can, I'll put it this way, weaponize our faith, the Bible, our reading of Scripture, to highlight the differences, where you're wrong, where I'm right, where, I want to make very certain, very clear that that you're wrong, in the way you're reading Scripture, or vice versa, that I'm wrong. Like you know what I'm saying? Like there's a way in approaching issues in sort of this public forum as followers of Jesus, where we have the opportunity to say, hey, is our faith going to be something that holds us together, right? And that is like the beauty of tension and of a community that wants to hold differences, right? Or are we going to say it's more important for us to be right?
Right.
In our reading, in my reading of Scripture, and that, just all contributes to kind of this idea of opposition that we're going to get into, because we talked about, we both preached about the idea of external opposition to what Nehemiah is doing to the build, and how we also can face opposition. Sure, I think equally important to realize, and we talked about this, we can also be the opposition. Yeah. And maybe you've not heard it put that way before, and I felt it felt a little harsh in some sense to say that. Yeah. But we see it as pastors. Sure. That our wants and likes can turn into things that oppose a particular direction. So do you want to talk a little bit about the difference between, we're spiritual opposition and personal opposition, and maybe the fact that, and we didn't quite get into this in the sermons, right? But the reality that not everything you experience is necessarily opposition.
No, exactly. And I think you hit on it nicely in that, so the important thing to remember is, regardless of what the source is from the outside, where the opposition is coming from, what it's about, why it's happening, we need to respond in a way that honors God, in a way that is spiritually sound. That is, you know, and we've said this before, that we live spiritual lives. We are to see everything in our life in a spiritual way, as a creation of God, as an image bearer of God, as a gift from God, as a challenge from God. And that's entirely about how we are challenged to view the world. And that's not the same as what it is that is actually coming at us, right? And that somebody might be opposing you because, you know, I think, somebody might be opposing what you are doing. So the example of Nehemiah is an excellent one, in that we're not told explicitly that it is a spiritual reason why they are upset about or why they're bothered by Jerusalem being rebuilt. I'm inclined to think it's far more about power for them, which can be interpreted as a spiritual thing.
Right.
But this is not an attack against God. This is an attack against people. This is an attack against what they have. You know, I said on Sunday to the folks at Family Church that, you know, when Israel's down, they're up. And so our inclination is to want to keep it that way, right? Like, no, I don't. I'm quite good with you being a vassal. Actually, I'd like you to stay that way, and that way I can thrive. And it's just an important thing for us to recognize the differences between what is coming in as it actually is and how we receive it. I don't know if I said much in that moment there. Anything?
No, I think it's good. You know, the way I read 4 and 6, like I think it has everything to do with power. You know, certainly there's religious and spiritual stuff going on. So Sanballat is the governor of Samaria, and you know, we know Jews and Samaritans have never gotten along.
Right.
You know, different reading of scripture, different reading of relationship to God, covenant. You know, their theology would exclude one another, kind of thing, and so you know that's all kicking around in the background, but like the governor of Samaria probably just doesn't like that Nehemiah showed up to rebuild Jerusalem with the blessing of the king. So the guy arrives with letters, you know, that guarantee is safe passing, with letters to, you know, get free supply, like to pay for supply to rebuild. Like, so dude shows up and he's got the complete blessing of the king, support of the king, resources of the king.
Right.
And the governor of Samaria is probably like, hey, well, what about me?
Right.
You know, what about us? Like what is this going to mean? Like a strong Jerusalem, does that mean
are
like...
we going to get an arm? So once he's rebuilt Jerusalem, is he going to turn around and stomp us out?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And so, you know, it like I do think it's important to realize that just because, you know, we would say on the one hand, like everything is spiritual in the sense that like everything affects us as spiritual beings, like if that is true about who we are as creations, then everything we do, like you can't separate the body from the spirit, you can't separate the mind from the spirit. Like those are things that are integrated. But I like what you said, that it doesn't mean that the opposition we're feeling has a like inherently spiritual maybe beginning or motivation. Not that it can't discourage you, it can. Not that it can't affect you spiritually, it can. But maybe the error that we want to make as humans is to interpret everything as spiritual because it allows us to dismiss it. Right? It
makes it impossible for us to be wrong.
Exactly.
Right? Like if God is on our side, then who can be against us? Well, everyone who disagrees with you, right? Like that's the conclusion of that train of logic. And I think it's cool to see that in this, Nehemiah, you know, addresses it. He deals with each of these forms of opposition in their own way, and never once says, you know, this is an attack on Yahweh. This is an attack on our God. These people are a godless people who whatever. Like maybe he thought it. Maybe he, you know. But in what we have here, that's not part of the narrative. And and I think there's something to be said too in terms of how God honors the mission that he's on because of that, keeping it in perspective.
Yeah.
That he keeps it within the practical. Like, you don't get to stop. This is an important thing for us to remember too. Even when we're facing spiritual oppression, friends, there's no pause that happens there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not, oh, well, this is because this is a spiritual thing, I'm just going to step back. Right? Like, and it's going, maybe, but I'm not going to stop building. I'm not going to stop caring for my people. I'm not going to stop trying to protect them.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to stop praying.
Yeah.
Which is like really cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for us to realize that not everything that we don't like or that is trying to convince us to stop doing something or to start doing something, like not every piece of advice, not every thing that you feel coming in at you is opposition just simply because you don't like it. And so like we don't get to dismiss things.
Sure.
You have to, and I think that's why the turn to prayer is so important, because like Nehemiah in that first round of opposition could have I think he could have just completely dismissed it, completely ignored it. Certainly in the second round of opposition where it's like direct threat, we're going to come in, like he could have just completely dismissed it and just completely said, this is opposition, this is spiritual opposition, whatever. Like, they don't like what we're doing. I don't care. I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm going to ignore what they're saying. He doesn't do that, right? That would be foolish.
Yeah.
He has a response.
Yep.
But it's important that his response begins with prayer, because I think that's what guards us from just simply saying, because I don't like what you're saying to me, I'm going to compartmentalize it. I'm going to wall it off as opposition, as spiritual opposition, and I'm going to say that I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm going to completely dismiss what you're saying.
God is on my side, can't be on yours.
Yep. Yeah. And there's no credibility there. So I'm going to go on happiness is with my life and, continue whatever. Like, Nehemiah doesn't do that. And I think that's the important thing for us to realize is just because we don't like something doesn't mean it's opposition.
Sure.
And worse still would be to dismiss it as spiritual opposition.
Yes.
Because then it you lose any possibility that what somebody is saying to you, you actually need to hear.
Well said.
So
yeah. On that note, so in terms of how Nehemiah responds, I know a question a lot of us have had wrestling with is so about the whole praying for revenge thing. How does that figure into a well-balanced spiritual response to things of like, I'm not going to lash out at my kids, but I am going to pray that God shows them the error of their ways, and that I know my daughter lied to me about whether or not she washed her hands yesterday, and so I'm going to ask that her friends see her today as a liar, and that how do we do that? How do we? What is with that? Is that something to mirror? Is that something to? What do you think?
Oh, it's great. So it's in chapter 4, verse 4 is where it starts. And so first of all, Tobiah the Ammonite, right, has this awesome insult. Even a fox climbing up on it would break down their wall of stone. So I'm like, okay, well.
If you ever watched the Family Church feed, you really need to see the way that I read that passage.
Okay.
Like it was what are they building? Are they putting up a stone wall? But suppose a fox climbs on top of it, even that would break it down, right? Which I'm sure is exactly the way Tobias sounded. Like it's
right? So I mean, hilarious. And then this is a great it's a great turn, right? In 4, hear us, our God, for we are despised, turn their insults back on their own heads. Give them over as plunder in a land of captivity. Like Nehemiah gets really salty. It's not, it's not light language.
He literally says, "Don't be gracious." I want you to don't you dare hide your eyes from their guilt.
Yep. Do not cover up their guilt or blot out their sins from your sight. Right? They've insulted us. But I think that it, as much as, there are moments in scripture where you read it and you're like, what is going on? Like, that dude needs some anger management there. Like, he needs to talk to a counselor.
Yeah.
Actually, that's what he's doing.
Right.
In some sense, that is like, so I want to be very careful because it's very good to equally go talk to a counselor.
Yes.
So, you don't get to like just replace that.
No.
So I want to be very careful with even as much as to say that.
Yeah.
But what Nehemiah is doing is I think very healthy in that, he's obviously feeling all of these emotions. He's obviously very angry.
Yeah.
And like by the end, so not only do they ridicule them for what they're doing, which are like, okay, fine, that's a certain level,
You know
maybe.
what? This is a pretty good wall. I'd love you go get a fox.
You do.
And
You
we'll
do
see.
better.
We'll see. Okay, this guy bakes perfume for a living. All right, you just lay off on the bad wall building. Okay,
That's like the scene from Monty Python where they weigh against a duck. You go get a fox. Let's see what happens.
I did. You know what? I will call that bluff. You go get a fox. I would love to see this fox knock the wall down.
But
No, go ahead. I'll wait. I'm not doing anything.
So by the end, like as comical as that is on the one hand, right? So you get actual threat of war, of armed conflict, and then you get them going behind, trying to basically slander and ruin Nehemiah's name.
Yeah.
So like by the end of those 3 rounds of opposition, it's actually heavy, and I think that what Nehemiah does is healthy because, again, he doesn't turn back in any type of retaliation.
No.
He doesn't overreact. He doesn't react, like it's not, what happens is unhealth begets more unhealth. Yep. And so, we don't see that. Like, unless there's a way to take it. So I don't know if you watched How I Met Your Mother growing up. But there's this one episode called like the circle of screaming, or like the chain of screaming or something, where like one person gets yelled at work and then they go yell at somebody else and then they go yell at and it's just this never ending like abyss of anger. And that is, I think, the way human beings react. We know that to be true in all of our relationships. If you have a terrible day at work and don't confront that with your spouse, like don't actually give voice to that, who are you most likely to take out your anger on? It's your partner,
whoever.
Right? But like, it's the person you often feel safest with.
Sure.
That you become the most emotional with, and so I think what Nehemiah models is this really healthy way to turn to God and say, I am feeling these things.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna place them on somebody or with somebody who can hold them and react in a right and just way, because we can't always do that when we are in these high intensity, high anxiety, high stress, high emotion, reactive, situations.
Sure.
We can't always rely on our own judgment.
No.
And in fact,
for the very point we just talked about.
Exactly.
Right? Like, we will internalize things far more than they need to be internalized. We will personalize things far more, right? That's when we ascribe, meaning to what other people have said when they haven't said it.
Yeah.
Right? And again, I love that he, he gives his hottest to God, right? Like, he takes the most raw emotion and pours it out on God.
Yeah.
And as we all know, you only have so much energy for these things. And like you said, when we feed this stuff, it grows. It grows and it doesn't go away. And I think we've all seen that. Like, in the last little while, like, there are folks that it breaks my heart. I turn my phone on at 6 a.m, whatever. I, go through my emotions, and then there's just some angry posts first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I'm just, my heart breaks for those folks. It's just like, you gotta, like, man, oh man. And it's not that there aren't things to be angry about. And I don't want folks to hear me saying that. When all you carry around is anger, and is only aimed at people who will respond back in anger, it's just, it grows. Whereas God can take it and transform it right? Like it gets transformed into, give me stronger hands, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to lean into what you've called me to do, and not respond to this. Like I said to Family Church, like he actually does the thing that all of us are always counseled to do.
Yeah.
Which is don't respond, right?
Yeah.
Like don't retaliate, don't return in kind, just walk away.
Yep.
And yeah.
So we read it and it sounds really salty. But it actually ends here in
Yes.
in the story as we've been presented with it, and as we have it now. It really ends at that point, and Nehemiah turns and in prayer is able then to continue practically moving forward. I think it's really interesting. So you turn your phone on, first thing in the morning, and I think, at the risk of stretching, for the sake of just getting really practical, I do think it's important for us to develop habits that don't feed the anger cycle, right?
That's well said.
And what's one of the most common sources of anger these days? It's social media. And let's be honest,
what?
There's right.
Mine's all cat videos.
There's probably it's an algorithm, right? Just cat video after cat video after cat video.
I didn't even know about this thing happening in Ottawa till yesterday. It was insane. Yeah.
So, but I think it's worth saying that it is an algorithm, and it's not designed to be unbiased. It's designed to capture your attention and to hold you in an emotionally manipulated and heightened place. And so it's I do think that for as much as we receive those things, the call is we need to learn the habits of turning toward God and voicing anger and voicing emotion, all of it.
Yeah.
But equally as important, on the front end, we can learn to better guard against receiving it in the first place.
Yeah.
And, I think the number one thing for people to do, don't turn your phone on for the first hour of your life.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Yeah. Yeah.
If the first thing you hop on is social media in the morning, I guarantee you that your entire day is going to be worse for it.
Sure. It'll absolutely be shaped by what you've taken in. And, one of the greatest things that I think we can do for our families in a practical sense is to model what it looks like to process things in a healthy way. Yeah. One of the greatest things I've learned from my wife in terms of our relationship, but something that we both worked very hard at with regards to parenting, is to validate what people are feeling, help them process it. With our kids, it's letting them have the space to kind of, again, burn off the hot and then to pursue them, which I love, which is so very much not our desire most of the time. It's well, hey, when they're ready, they can come talk to me. Yeah. It's going, no, you know what? God is the God of pursuing, right? God always pursues us. And we can model that to help them find the words sometimes to express what they're feeling, especially when they're little. But those are things that, speaking personally, no offense to my mom and dad, that was not part of my upbringing to help to learn to articulate your feelings, your emotions. It was, no, you need to know that you disrespected us as your parents and move on, right? That was the language. But helping our kids to articulate, validate what they're feeling, but also that fine line of helping them validate what they're feeling, but also to then recognize what is true about the situation. Right? And that's a very big lesson, I think, for us to learn today, is that not everything you feel is 100% as it is. Right? Yes, I might be angry about this. That doesn't mean that what I am interpreting is, and this is right back to what you were saying before, it doesn't mean that it's an opposition against me. It might simply be something within myself. But and certainly that's not to replace the importance of what Nehemiah models here, which is to come to God as well.
Yeah. So, just to land really, really practically.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think we can probably picture what those conversations might look like, or what it might take to have the conversations with your family. So,
Sure.
you know, whether it's something that you as a family have kind of committed to doing over a meal, or after a meal, or, you know, in a certain space, or
Something as simple as, roses and thorns with your kids, to help them process the things that are
right,
heavy on their hearts.
right. There's really practical, and there's some great resources out there. My sister just started using, and I don't remember what the name of this kit is, but it's like a toolkit that has the emotion, like it has pictures, that has names of feelings, and then practical next steps. It's this really cool thing.
That's awesome.
And so we were talking a little bit about that, but just these practical ways that you can help your kids identify it. I think we maybe have a little bit harder of a time getting that practical with our relationship to God. Nehemiah just it's like, well, I turned and prayed, and this is what I said.
Yeah.
And we're like, I mean, okay, great.
He doesn't live in a house with 4 other people. Yeah.
We probably all need to just shut the door sometimes and yell at God. There's a very I think raw, honest approach.
Cathartic. It's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But practically speaking, it's probably not something you can make a habit out of day in and day out.
No, your boss might. Yeah.
But something as simple as journaling, right? Yep. Can be that practical, habitual routine way in which you learn to express your emotions before God.
What was that Henry Nouwen book that we just looked at together? Not that long ago. That is exactly that. It's a journey that he went through of articulating his feelings in relation to some pretty big emotions that he was facing, and it's just this beautiful short little some of them it's a paragraph, right, of this is how I'm feeling, Lord, and this is what you thought, and
so this is the inner voice of love. A journey through anguish to freedom. But Henry Nouwen, if you're looking for something to help you,
always good,
give voice to your emotions, for sure. He is an excellent writer, resource for for sorting that through. And I think the like anything, it's about learning the ways in which you can continually do it, and we see that in Nehemiah. It's okay, fair. Nehemiah's writing the story about his own life, so maybe he leaves out some of the stuff.
And then I flawlessly transitioned to prayer.
And then I punched that dude in the face. He
went down and everyone respected me. That's not.
Turns out I shouldn't have done it. So maybe, you know what? Anyways, but we have what we have, which is part of how do you read scripture, right? We have what we have in front of us, and that's all we have.
Yeah.
Acknowledging that the people inside of it are human and flawed and definitely not perfect, but it's this routine. It's this, like I said, on Sunday for us, it's this back and forth. It's this constant turning to prayer, and I think we just need to learn what works for us. What is your constant turning toward God? Maybe prayer, maybe music, maybe writing and journaling, maybe getting out and going for a walk, maybe going for a run, maybe there are very practical things that you can do that help your mind and your heart and your body turn toward God. And it's less about doing what you think is the right thing, the right churchy thing, and more about doing what is the best thing for you, the best practical thing to help you.
And my one advice in that is make sure God's at the center. Sometimes we can go I really experience God in nature. Bring God into it. I really experience God in a run. Bring God into it. And make that a really holy time. And I know certainly both of us would testify to the fact that what a difference it makes. For sure. Well, hey.
So awesome. We hope that this helps you take a practical next step in your faith, whether it's as simple as buying a journal.
Yeah.
Right? Like make it practical, make it simple, and in that, I think you're gonna find encouragement. Know that we're praying for you, and we hope that you have a good week ahead.